If you're interested in making six figures, then check out Ron Armstrong's Six Figure PM program. In just 6 short weeks, you'll be trained to become a digital project manager where you'll learn to build websites, apps, social media campaigns, and digital games. Best of all, you'll be the boss and manage your own team. No coding experience is required, and once you complete the program, you'll receive help in finding your first six-figure job. The fee for the program is extremely affordable, so check it out now at www.thesixfigurepm.com. Classes are starting soon, so you'll want to enroll as soon as possible. There are a lot of black folks going around spreading information on social media about the alleged return of COVID mandates. Now, according to these black people on social media, they say a transportation security administrator says that there are plans to go out here and bring back mask mandates by mid-October, and that there are plans to bring back lockdowns by December. Now, this conspiracy theory has been presented by a lot of people on Facebook and Twitter, and when I listened to a lot of this misinformation, I went to try to find where these sources were coming from. And soon I went and found an Associated Press article that presented that most of this information did not come from the Transportation Security Administrator rumors. It really came from Alex Jones, a known conspiracy theorist. Now, this is the reason why you have to check your sources, and you have to check your sources for making sure that the information that they present is something that can be substantiated. Because when you have individuals going out here spreading these kinds of rumors, what that does is what we had in 2020 may create a lot of hysteria and panic. And what that hysteria and panic does is it makes it where people go out here and start reacting in irrational ways. And that's something we need to not do, because we see how damaging that was over the course of the pandemic. One of the things that made the pandemic worse was all of this misinformation that was spread, and it just added fuel to the fire for most of the conspiracy theories. Now, some of the conspiracy theorists believe that there are plans to bring back these COVID mandates because of a surge of COVID, and they believe that that is going to be used to try to bring back these mask mandates, jab mandates, and lockdowns in order to try to go out here and manipulate the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. Now, when I take a critical examination of that conspiracy theory, I really don't see it having much merit, because while Joe Biden's approval rating is low, I don't really think that they're going to go out here and try to manipulate the vote this time, as some allege, because with Joe Biden's approval rating being low, what would happen in the event of mask mandates and lockdowns is it would shine a bright light on some video that Joe Biden presented, where he said that the jabs would not give you COVID, because that would be played all throughout his campaign, and it would basically torpedo his campaign before it even started. A surge of COVID that would lead to a lockdown and mandates returning would guarantee a Joe Biden loss to whatever candidate, and he would possibly wind up losing in the primaries to Robert Kennedy. This would again add fuel to the fire. So when I listen to that conspiracy theory, it really doesn't have merit, because it would be the nail in the coffin for Joe Biden. Moreover, they would not be possible to go out here and bring back lockdowns, because we have a whole host of Supreme Court rulings, and those Supreme Court rulings clearly state that as related to the 10th Amendment, there is a separation of church and state, So there's no way you can bring back these lockdowns and take away Americans' rights because we now have fresh legal rulings as related to these whole lockdowns. And if you did try to bring them back, that would be political suicide in an election year because we in 2024 we are not only electing a president, but we're also electing a new Congress, and any politician who supported these policies basically would be signing their own death warrant because many people now see that these lockdowns they did not work. We have statistics and research to show that they did not work. Moreover, we have research to show that they had a negative impact on mental health. So any proposal to go out here and bring back lockdowns, again, would be political suicide. And it would also be political suicide for any politician to go out here and talk about jab mandates when the U.S. Supreme Court already has struck down the whole thing as related to private business and jab mandates. We already have a U.S. Supreme Court ruling as related to these jabs, so there is no way that they could bring these back to private business. And again, any politician who proposed these mandates would go out here and participate in career suicide, the same way New York Mayor Eric Adams is basically participated in political suicide when he went out here and supported the jab mandates all the way through 2021, keeping a million New Yorkers out of work, and basically was embarrassed politically by members of his own party. And we have statistics that show that these jabs, again, you cannot force people to continue to take them. Again, we have constitutional law established by the Supreme Court, so that whole conspiracy has no weight, and that whole conspiracy basically falls apart. And as related to the mask mandates, these are being done by private businesses, and if you don't want to deal with those businesses, you can leave them. Same thing with the universities like Rutgers who have a jab mandate. The way you deal with it is just not go attend that school and go to a competing school. Again, these are private businesses participating in this as related to this whole COVID surge. And the whole thing is that the conspiracy theorists, they want to go out here and create panic and hysteria. They want to create panic and hysteria because what these individuals want to do is go out here and stoke up fears, and we really don't need all of this fear out here because it's all that fear that led to much of the hysteria we endured over 2020, and all of that hysteria, what it did was make the whole situation worse as related to COVID, created a lot of emotional reactions that made a situation blow up out of proportion and led to a lot of knee-jerk reactions that led to the damage to our society as related to how we relate to each other, because children wound up not being able to go to school. They wound up not being able to socialize. We wound up with people's mental health deteriorating from being isolated for an extended period of time. And this, we don't really need to go back to this because we see that this whole approach of lockdowns, masks, and jabs really has not worked. And again, only an insane person would do this in an election year, go out here and bring back these policies that have alienated most of the public, which has dealt with, again, serious mental health issues. No one would want to exacerbate things, again, especially when you have many of these politicians who are, especially the blue ones, dealing with low approval ratings. And this, again, would be the end of those politicians if they brought back these policies. I mean, in the case of Joe Biden, again, that tape of him saying you would never get COVID if you took this shot would be played by his political opponents. And in the case of many of these other local politicians who are dealing with low approval ratings like Kathy Hochul and Eric Adams, this would further lead to these individuals basically being made into just jokes and they would lose all their credibility and their authority to govern because no one would respect them. I mean, a lot of these politicians are on extremely thin ice, and if you went out here and brought back these policies, you would wind up breaking that already thin ice that many blue politicians are dealing with as related to their failed policies. They are dealing with 4 years of failed policies, and bringing back these whole COVID narrative would make Americans extremely angry because Americans are fed up with that whole policy. And when people started hearing about these whole stories, that's when you started to see the ire and the anger of the American public start to rise. That's when you started to see the ire and the anger of people all over the world. So only a fool would go out here and bring back these policies because, again, these policies would alienate most of those voting blocks in an election year, and there would be no way to manipulate people into following these rules because a lot of people at this point, they are fed up with these approaches that they see that don't work, and only a fool would go out here and bring this back. Only a fool would do this because the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. Bringing back policies that clearly have failed would only cement the incompetence of those leftists. Bringing back policies that have failed would only alienate most of the voting blocks in an election year, and bringing back these policies would just go out here and aggravate and alienate most people to the point where they would look to vote for political opponents or independents in an effort to get change. So while some of these conspiracy theorists think that this would bring about a new world order, what it would bring is a revolution, and only a fool would go out here and look to start creating policies or extremely detached and disconnected people, because the reality of trying to implement these policies would be a political disaster that would extremely be considered one of the worst in history since 1789 in France. That's what would happen if you went back to bringing these policies that have failed back on any political level. What you would have is a foundation for revolution, because people would realize that their politicians that they have voted for are disconnected and detached. They would realize that they cannot get any sort of things as related to change from these individuals, and they would put off this government and replace it with a new government, the way Thomas Jefferson said. That's what would happen if these conspiracy theories were substantiated. And again, this is why black people, we cannot be running around taking information from these conspiracy theorists. No, you need to go out here and really check your sources, because what I'm finding with a lot of this media out here is you really have to check the sources for it, because there's a lot of fake news out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's why you have to be very careful about what you listen to. I remember going out here and seeing this summer a report that said that Jada Pinkett Smith said that white supremacy ruined her Cleopatra documentary, and I decided to do some more research. And as I did some more research, I soon found that this was a piece of fake news made by a fake website. And again, I was planning on making a video on it until I did more research, and when I did that research, it helped me find that this was something that was not credible. And I recently saw a whole piece on social media talking about how Keke Palmer's boyfriend said he moved on, but that was also proven to be unsubstantiated. And I also saw a story talking about how Steve Harvey's wife had filed for divorce. So I've seen a lot of really stories that are just misinformation and fake news, and you have to be very careful about the content you read, and you have to make sure that that content is something that's substantiated. You have to make sure that that content is something that is presented by legitimate sources and multiple sources so you can get the point and the counterpoint, because a conspiracy theorist, they present conjecture and speculation, but conjecture and speculation is stuff based on somebody's feelings and ideas, not something presented that's substantiated with facts. So you have to be very careful about the stories you present in social media, and you have to be very careful about what you read. Again, you have to go out here and look for proper information and proper sources. You have to go out here and do the research. That's something I am urging black people to do, because sometimes when you're out here, you have to understand a lot of these conspiracy theorists, these are guys who want to make clickbait. And again, the clickbait is to bait you into buying into misinformation without ever going to check for the facts. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can send a donation to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my positive black fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, or my vampire novel Eternal Night, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find those books at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s in this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Get your copy of John Haynes 1987 in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support black-owned and black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.